So, namaste and welcome to Satsang today. So, Satsang is always for the direct experience of who we really are and to not only experience it, but to begin to break down everything that is in the way of us living as who we really are constantly and effortlessly. And who we really are is the one being. We are not separate beings moving towards awakening, moving towards the oneness. We don't have to merge into the oneness or any of those things. It's enough for us to recognize who we are already. And some of that time we'll have to spend looking at who we are not to see that this is an old way, an old perspective of looking at ourselves. And sometimes in satsang, the idea of who we think we are has to be broken down. So, and the problems that we have seemingly when we think we are a separate being have to begin to fall away. So, I wanted to really focus on that in this satsang that we have here tonight, this time. And I was asked this question this morning, and it's come up many times actually over the past few weeks in this anger, and I wanted to spend some time looking at this. Someone asked me this morning, what is attention? And I thought it was a really brilliant question because for a long time in my own journey, I was sure that I knew what attention was. And perhaps even more specifically, that I have to get attention to come back to the real self. And for a while, for all of us, that is how it is. Attention seems to go to our old sense of self again and again, to who we think we are, the thoughts going on in our mind. And there's a certain pulling power of those thoughts. There's a seductive nature to those thoughts. They're alluring, right? The attention seems to want to go to those thoughts or to some experience or some emotion. And for the longest time in my own journey, imagined journey, I felt powerless over the attention as if I had no control at all. And that even if I, like we practice here in this teaching and meditation, if I bring my attention back to what is real, which is the formless oneness, the consciousness, the presence, pure divinity, pure sentience before form. And that's not something far away. Let's experience it right now as we're listening. What is it that's aware of these words? What is it that's aware of whatever your eyes are taking in? And can you recognize that whatever is aware is not a person? And so began to investigate that this attention, why is it so elusive? Why can I not make it stay on this, whatever this is? I'm going to call it presence today, I think. Apparently, that's what the mouth is saying. Presence that is our real nature. They're all names for the same no thingness that has no name. Presence, when we bring attention back to it, the body responds accordingly. The mind slows down, the body relaxes, and everything seems much more pleasant. When attention is on our old sense of self, our thoughts about reality, about ourselves, about you, about me, all of this, about our problems, The body responds accordingly. The body says, no, this is not true. And there's some negative emotions sometimes, contractions in the body, and a lot of thoughts. And it seemed to me to be the answer for a long time that at some point I would be able to bring my attention back to presence and it would stay there. This, for such a long time, this was the goal I was chasing. And if you've ever tried this, you realize it's impossible. Attention moves back to thoughts. You bring it back to the presence. You have a nanosecond, maybe, if you're lucky, of and then it's back to thoughts and it's and this is going on and on and on. And as this pendulum swing gets narrower and narrower, you don't even get to rest in the good place, the attention being on the presence. It's just doing this. It's getting to this point where there's just intolerable and unbearable. Something has to give. At this point, I was trying even harder to keep attention on presence, thinking that there must be some magical way. But little did I realize that the only reason for bringing attention to the presence was to now allow enough life force to come into the body and mind to actually have half a chance of seeing what's true. It was never the goal to keep attention on presence. Attention is something that moves by its very nature. It will pay attention to things. It's looking at this thing, turning around to look at presence, and then it goes back to a thing, a thought, an emotion, an experience, presence, thought, presence, emotion, presence. And I couldn't see a way out of this. Finally, it began to become clear that maybe the problem isn't what I think it is. Maybe it's not that I can't manage to keep my attention on presence. Maybe it's that I think I have to do that. And as I began to investigate this, it became clear that maybe attention is actually not what I think it is. Because I was meditating one day and there was the sense of presence. And I noticed that when presence is consciously noticed, when presence is present to itself, our awareness is aware of itself, our stillness is resting as stillness, that there is no attention. You can check this out right now. If you notice awareness or presence, whatever you want to call it, emptiness, nothingness, divinity, God, the real self, the noumenon, that which is formless, if you notice it, attention disappears. Attention is just not there. There's only presence. It's gone. I began to really get curious, like what is actually happening here? And after a lot of struggling and suffering, it became clearer that attention appears. It's a form that happens in front of me, a subtle form, as I think I'm looking at a form. So if a thought arises in my mind, attention arises simultaneously to look at this thought. The thought and the attention show up together. My mind said, well, which one comes first, attention or the thought? If I could get rid of the thoughts, it wouldn't matter where attention is. Or if I could get rid of attention, I wouldn't be able to take the thoughts personally. And of course, it seemed like a really, really good idea. Finally, I realized that attention and the object we're paying attention to are the same thing. That you can't separate attention from the thought. You just can't. The moment there is something to look at, there is the capacity to look at a thing. And this open presence that just is somehow pulls off this amazing trick of being able to look at one part of itself, a thought. It's calling it a thought. And it kind of zooms right in to look at this one tiny piece of itself. As if you're standing in a football stadium and there's 100,000 people in this stadium and you're just kind of taking it all in. And all of a sudden, one guy stands up right on the front row and starts going crazy. And everyone turns and looks at this one guy. And to do that, you have to ignore everything else. Everything else. And so this is why attention will never stay in one place because it doesn't exist until it does. Once I figured this out, there was a lot of relaxation. So while it seems to be there, we can direct it back to the presence. But at some point, there's going to be a realization that only when I think there's something to look at does this very subtle form of attention appear. It is a form, an object, subtle. In this open presence, this formlessness that has no location is present everywhere all at once and cannot be divided into parts. Where's attention going to look? It just is, where is it gonna, where is the presence? Attention just kind of disappears and there's just presence. There's no thing to look at. So you begin to see that the object you're looking at, the experience, the emotion, a contraction, pain, a thought, whatever it is, even energy moving, um, anything at all. If you think that that thing is a thing, then attention will suddenly appear out of nowhere, literally out of nothingness, out of presence. Presence somehow imagines itself to be capable of looking at something. And then we've got this problem of what to do with attention, how to make it stay in one place. As you realize the attention that's looking and the thing that you're looking at are the same thing, they both disappear spontaneously. Or they're both seen to be the presence. That which is looking and that which is being looked at are made of the same presence. And this isn't something you can puzzle your way through and struggle to understand. It's just enough to listen lightly to this, not to try hard. Maybe I should have said this at the start, but anyway, we're already into it. Pretend I said that at the start. And just listening lightly with a maybe more curiosity as to what attention is and if it actually really exists, because sometimes it really seems to do. And it seems to be like a wild, crazy horse, right? That's running all over the place, doing its own thing, totally uncontrollable. And in other times, the experience of the real self is just I am. Presence is. Consciousness is. There's nothing to pay attention to. So it's never attention and fear, or attention and a thought, attention and a contraction in the body, attention and a lack of money, or whatever is going on in our lives. It's always attention and appearing as also whatever the phenomena is that we're currently paying attention to. And it's called paying attention because it costs us energy to imagine that we can take some section of the allness, the totality of the presence, which is totally indivisible, a small section out of it and call it a thought. And to do that, we have to ignore everything else in that moment. When your attention's on a thought, everything else is gone, right? I mean, you're just not able to focus on it. What use is all of this in your awakening? Well, just to relax a little bit around this attention thing, that it isn't our goal to kind of have it disappear even, or we're just trying to treat it more lightly, maybe letting go of the idea that it's our job to make it come to rest or anything like that. In the end of our journey, attention is seen to be just another subtle object that we really need not pay any attention to. There is no other word. Attention is just another subtle form that arises that is seen by you. The presence. Right now, you know that your attention, hopefully, is on these words. Or you know that your attention has wandered off to what am I going to have for dinner later? Or perhaps it's wandered to the thought, I've got no clue what this woman is saying. Or whatever the mind is doing. Wherever it is, attention cannot exist without the idea that there's objects to pay attention to. When attention goes, all the objects disappear. They don't literally disappear, but the suffering and the labeling and the rejecting and the pushing and pulling and all that stuff stops. Because all these apparent objects then are just experienced as presence. There's nowhere, no capability inside presence to interact with apparent objects at all. It is totally intangible and formless. How would it even interact with anything? And then it's seen that anything is just arising, a shape made by that presence. The totality of presence is appearing as a thought or a human body. And actually, it doesn't need to do anything about anything, nor does it have the capacity to presence. So can we get this really, really simple? What value is this talk to your awakening now? Simply just to be a little more curious about what attention is. To not be so sure like I was that I know what it is. That it is this wild, crazy thing that is constantly untrainable. You know, there's this great big myth that awakened beings finally managed to bring the attention under control and got it to stay on the presence. But actually, what actually happened is the capacity to pay attention to anything, any object, any form disappeared. Even if what we used to call a thought pops up, an emotion, it's seen to be presence in disguise. Really, what's the point in giving it any specialness? And then a thought or an emotion are just the same as a table or a tree. Absolutely experienced, there's no difference. All experienced as presence itself. So just taking this very lightly, that maybe the big problem I think I have in my awakening isn't really what I thought it was. Maybe the two things cycle off each other. The idea that there are things to pay attention to when really there aren't. They're all the appearances, ripples on the surface of presence, still presence. And the idea that I can pay attention. So the idea there's something to pay attention to and attention itself. Both arise spontaneously and both disappear spontaneously when it's clearly understood. Can you perceive an object at all if you don't pay attention to it? Is that even something that can happen? Have you ever noticed attention without anything to pay attention to? Attention has to be looking at something, right? And the thing and the attention are one. So in your meditation, when you're trying to bring attention back to the infinite self, the presence as we're calling it, do we ever actually succeed at that? The instruction is to bring attention back to presence, but actually what happens is attention disappears and there's just presence. in the relaxation of the intention, I'd like to bring attention back to presence. There's a opening in the presence and it stops fixating on a thing and just And the mind says, I did that. I did it. I brought attention back to presence. But it's never happened. Attention just disappears and then there's only presence. Attention and the apparent object disappear and there's only presence. So you can either question what attention really is, or you can question if the object you're paying attention to really exists in the way that you think. If you're ready for the quick door out of all suffering, be willing to question if any object exists at all in the way that you think it does. This used to terrify me when I would hear teachers speak about it. Oh my God, the whole thing's going to just disappear and I'll be sat in this black abyss of nothingness. But actually, the senses perceive the exact same thing as before. But the mind isn't dividing it into parts and labeling wanted, not wanted, awful, ecstatic, good, bad, awakened, not awakened. That whole capacity falls away. The presence recognizes itself to be appearing as all these phenomena. That there is nothing other than presence. So next time you bring attention back to presence, if you really watch closely, you'll see that attention disappears. Best thing to do is to prove this to yourself. You cannot actually be aware of awareness. There's just awareness. You cannot rest in the stillness. There's just stillness. You can't listen to the silence. There's just silence. Even to say silence listening to itself, we might use that as a concession, but it's not really true. Consciousness, being conscious of itself, it's a total lie. Just consciousness. And then later, attention and an apparent object, and then consciousness, and then attention and an apparent object, and then consciousness. So while attention seems to be there, redirect it to its source, and at some point it will disappear. It doesn't mean you're an automaton and you can't drive a car because if a car pulls out in front of you, you're not going to react. The body and everything else still functions exactly the same. But without the attention zooming in on the car, there isn't this barrage of thoughts afterwards. Why did he do that? He almost hit me. Why did I come this way today? All of that stuff just cannot happen. The car pulls out, the foot goes on the brake. That's it. It's a much different way to live. So if you feel a resonance with what's been said, don't try hard to do anything with it. In fact, don't try at all. It's the best way. Just kind of, I'd like to deeply get that experientially. Just a real gentle, yeah, I'd like to, or maybe you have got this experientially. Maybe you came to Satsang half asleep because you've had a full day at work and that served you kind of half, that really served you well to be half asleep because you couldn't really try to do anything with what was said. You were just kind of listening. And something just unfolded itself inside presence. But if you did try to do something with the words, it's okay. You'll get another opportunity in the next moment. All this is just to say it might be a lot easier than you think it is, this awakening thing. Hopefully, you're starting to suspect that. And that if some problem you think you have is very complex along the path, it's because it's not true. Okay. I will open it up. I'll take the first 5 hands that go up and no more. Um, okay. We will go to Liesel when you're ready.
Hi, can you hear
I-
me?
Yes.
Okay. I'm not exactly sure what my question is, but this satsang really resonates with me. And there's this sense of what keeps coming is, oh, attention isn't the bad guy. Attention is actually always doing what it's been instructed to do.
To look
Even
at the object that we think is there. Yeah. Yeah.
like if its instruction is to turn to the presence, there's nothing else it can turn to.
Yeah.
And so actually, in a strange way, it's it's actually wiser than whatever it is that's still there judging that it's not looking at the right thing.
Yeah, mine's going, why won't it stay over here? And attention's going, well, you told me to go over here. You're thinking there's all these objects to look at. So what am I supposed to do? I'm going to spend half my time looking at objects and then some of the time looking at presence. And the mind's going, oh, you're supposed to stay in one place. But presence, attention is a form of presence, right? And it's just wandering around doing what it's told, like you said, based on your intention.
Right. But almost as if it's trying to, there's this thought like, oh, it's actually trying to help me see in whatever it's focusing on, see that yes, that's presence.
Mm.
Is that true? Like, is there, could it be that instead of, you know, redirecting attention to quote unquote the presence that we like, which is the nice, lovely, formless presence, like you might just drop any redirecting at all and just whatever attention moves to, like, okay, that's
Presence
presence.
too, appearing as a thought or whatever it's appearing as, a table, an emotion, planet, a human being, whatever.
So how do you recognize whether when to I mean so I
It
mean
drops by itself, right? When you realize there's nothing to pay attention to, and
Mhm.
the urge to try to control it drops away. Where would you direct attention? Or it can go wherever it wants. I'm always looking at myself, presence. Then it drops away spontaneously, this constant trying to bring it back. And
And,
paradoxically, by trying to bring it back enough times, we realize it's never gonna stay. Working with an apparent object, attention, is not working out so well for me, right? If our meditation shows us anything, it's that attention is never going to stay where we put it. It's a movement. It's not stillness. It's a movement.
so is it giving up the doership of the redirecting attention and just attention moves and just looking deeply wherever
It,
attention moves.
it happens either one or two ways. The doership is just given up because it's too painful. It just falls away. The presence is like, I'm so done with trying to do. It doesn't work. Despite my best efforts, I can't do this properly. Or the presence realizes there's nothing to look at. There's no thing for attention to look at. So what's the point in trying to direct, to bring attention away from a thought back to presence? It is really, it's a non-happening. This presence is appearing as a thought. Whichever one of those arises first, it doesn't matter. The doership just kind of melts away in that. Attention can go wherever it likes. What has it got to do with me?
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Wonderful. Lean?
Helen,
Hi.
seem to have no choice than to raise my hand again. Um, yeah. It also resonated with me what you talked about. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, sorry, the video wasn't showing. Yeah, it also resonated, and it also seemed to, well, some things that were showing up today. Wait, I'm not being clear, but like it also seems to be that attention is directly linked to the so-called person. Um, that it's like,
Attention is the person, right?
yeah, that's what it's becoming clearer. Also, like there were two things today that made it clearer. Also, there was this at a certain point I was watching the fear come up, and um, it became clear that, like, looking at these sensations, I saw that it wasn't really fear, that fear was just a label, and that it wasn't, in fact, dangerous. And then later, I don't remember why, but I suddenly realized that um, that that it makes no sense not to allow things the way they are because they're already here, and that like I don't know how to say it, but like also suddenly a lot of thoughts came up, and it didn't feel like there was me and the thoughts. They were just thoughts, and
Thoughts floating through presence. Yeah.
yeah, it was just I suddenly I think I'm not sure if it's a bit the same, but it's just like there's just one. There's not a division of me intervening with something that's happening because there has never been this me, and so resistance is really not necessary. In fact, it suddenly became clearer, I think.
Because there's no middleman between presence and whatever it's appearing as. There's just you and all these apparent objects floating around, thoughts, and that we would have really said are a problem before. I need to change this.
Mhm.
And the person tries really, really hard with this idea that if I push against what's already manifested, somehow it will not manifest. But after a while, you realize it's already manifested. So by pushing against it to try to stop it showing up, it is not really ever going to work.
Mhm.
Something just relaxes in that. What happens when the person thinks, when I stop resisting, but actually the person disappears when you stop resisting, it's not really there. It's
Yeah,
just a movement, isn't it, more than anything? An interaction with the apparent phenomena.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, and I understood more what it's about. In fact, it's like it's indeed like what you say in a way simpler than you would think it is.
Yeah,
Just yeah,
always. It's always simpler than we think it is, right?
yeah.
I remember it seemed like it was very complex. And when I actually realized how simple it was, I was a little embarrassed for a while. Like, bit of big drama out of nothing. But it felt very real at the time, of course, very, very real.
Yeah, it makes things also indeed a bit lighter and simpler.
Yeah. So anytime you find yourself trying to do anything about anything, you just go, oh, wait a minute. That's not real. Let me just relax a minute, come back to myself. And then it all changes and moves on its own anyway.
Yeah, and then again, you see the body just doing its thing, and
Yeah.
like it's just all happening.
It'll feel the fear. It'll
Yeah,
do what it does with the fear. The fear will go at some point. or it won't, but it doesn't matter because you're just watching.
Mm. Yeah, I notice that like now also there's a little bit of tension in my arms because probably because I'm watching like there's a camera and but it doesn't feel like a problem. It's just like some sensations that are there and
It's no different than the sensation that your body's making with a chair, right? No more important than that.
and
But
I also wonder if um I also have the feeling that it makes it more interesting to or I don't know what like that it doesn't seem so much like something on the outside needs to happen or something needs to change, but more like as if like I'm being more curious about what is this then or something.
we stop consistently trying to change what is and become curious about what it actually is. It's a very fundamental shift in our orientation then towards awakening.
Mm.
Instead of let me rearrange my outer and inner worlds to get to awakening, it's like, well, actually, that's not working out so well. Let me see actually what this stuff is and does it actually need changing? Because I've always met it with this idea that it does need to change. It's very different then.
Mm.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Nancy?
Hi, Helen.
Hi, love.
Um, yeah, I reckon I'm still stuck at what you just said because I just want things to change. I'm not sure if I'm on board that I'm awareness and this all doesn't exist.
Okay.
I'm the,
It's okay. Yeah. Do me a favor if you want to. Let's feel this desire now for things to change. Let's really feel it. Like I really want something. Just let it be in your body. Let it exist. Just take a moment.
do you want me to talk it out or just feel
Just
it?
feel it for a moment and then we'll see what happens. And everyone can do this if you have this same feeling. I really need things to be different. Strong desire. Just let it go in the body. Let it feel. Let it exist. What's happening with the body is you just let this desire be there.
Nothing really.
Is the energy, this desire, is it moving? Becoming stronger or less?
Well, right in that second, or since you started talking when you started talking, it wasn't that hard. But if will have another anxiety attack in 2 hours or tomorrow, whatever, then it will be super strong again.
Let's just focus on now.
Okay.
Yeah, because that's all we have right now.
Yeah.
No pun intended. Um, right now, when I allow this desire to exist in my body, to be felt, what happens? When I give it total permission to exist.
Feels like it turns into anger, furious anger.
Stay
That
with it. Let the anger exist then. Let it be there. You don't have to like it, but it's here, so we might as well give it permission. You can have this body just for a few minutes or whatever.
I feel like I could scream out loud.
If you do, just give us a heads up. We can turn the sound down first. Yeah. Just doing your best to let it be there. The mind will want to try to do something with it. The mind will say this is going to be too strong, but just feeling this, just the best that you can, whatever that is for you right now. showing up for this emotion. You're doing amazing.
I'm surprised. Usually the tears would come, or would have more urge to punch into the pillow. But this is not happening now.
Just showing up for this and getting as curious as you can. What is this feeling? What is this? I've always labeled it with a name. See if you can get really curious about it. If maybe you can kind of meet it just a little bit more, just a little bit.
Yeah, now I'm getting a little sad. Yeah, it's not.
So it's changing, right? The time that we're allowing and sitting with it. And of course, the sadness isn't pleasant, but maybe the fire's gone out of it now. There's just a little intensity's going, right? There's sadness now. Yeah. Let's just stay with it for a few more minutes. See if you can be curious about this. What actually is it? You're being really brave to be here with us all and do this. And we're so grateful. Can you see that this isn't actually about needing things to change? This is more about an energy that hasn't been allowed and met completely inside.
Okay.
The reason I'm saying this is because if this really is a desire for things to be different in the outside world, there's not a lot you can do about that, right? It's going to lead to disappointment. When you actually feel this, it starts off as a desire, but it's always usually an emotion underneath.
Hmm.
What'll happen is it'll burn off through all these stages: desire, anger, sadness, maybe next apathy, and then relief. And okay, it's just doesn't feel like anything now, whichever way that goes. And when it's burnt off its intensity because we've just been present to it, there might be some remnant of desire. Okay, I would like this to be different, but it doesn't come with the struggle, the suffering inside. Usually, our desire is also confused with a whole ball of energies of stuff that just needs to be met and felt. And that's what you're doing now so well. How do you feel now?
A second. A little empty.
Is that terrible?
No, it's not terrible. No, it's just boring. It's
Boring.
utterly boring a little bit.
Let's stay with this empty now. Let's stay with this empty. See, mine stamped it boring. Let's move on. Let's stay with the empty now. See, now it's changed to empty. See what mind is doing? It's trying to get you to move away from it. And I did it, of course, but let's just stay. What is empty? What is that empty?
This is not comfortable. Something's missing. Like everything breaks together or breaks down. This is weird. What is this?
Take a nice deep breath from me. Just breathe right from your belly as well. Just help your body to relax. What's happening is that we've been so sure that we know what this is, right? And then I said it's a little bit breaking down, as you said. It can be a little weird at first, but we're all here together and we're all holding your hand right with it there with you. I had to do this too. Take another nice deep breath when you can.
But I don't want my life to break down. I I don't want that to be just an illusion. Because
What if
before
it,
before
what
I got sick a few years ago, I had a happy life. I'm not one of those that has always been unhappy. I just want my life back from a few years ago. It was all good.
what if it's breaking together, not apart right now? What if you don't listen to the story the mind's saying right now that this is a bad thing that's happening, right? Can you see immediately the mind says this is really, really bad? Yeah. So let's just feel what we're feeling without telling any stories about it, just for this moment and see what happens. You're doing so well, so, so well. Wonderful. Some nice deep breaths as well. Perfect. Can you see your body knows what to do, right? It's taking some nice deep breaths. You feeling any calmer?
Yeah.
Good. Let's just stay with this for a few more minutes, you and I, if you want to. We've come this far, we might as well finish the journey, yeah? Just being with what is, whatever you're feeling, just being with it the best that you can. No stories. It's just your body moving with the energy, right? It
It
knows what to do. How you feeling now?
feels very weird. Oh,
It's just shaking it off, right? It's energy that's been stuck.
okay.
You see cats and dogs and animals do it, right? They're
All
just,
right, yeah. True.
and now you're laughing, see? It's breaking together, isn't it? Not apart. I know you're not 100% convinced it's okay. Just we're just turning around this big story, you see, when
Yeah.
we actually authentically meet something, our thoughts about it begin to, our thought constructed self begins to dissolve and mind freaks out like, oh my God, I didn't sign up for this. And conclude something terrible. It's the apocalypse, you know? Panic, hit the big red panic button. But if we can just not go there and go, I actually don't know what's happening here. I'm not so sure it's a terrible thing. Maybe the body's just letting go some frequencies that have been stuck. The mind, it stamps this energy as desire and says it's desire for stuff to change, which we can't really do anything about. And then we feel terrible because we feel blocked and stuck. But if we investigate this energy like we've done together, we've done it so well, it begins to move and lighten and enlighten, right? The frequencies become enlightened, lighter, not so heavy and
But it did happen now because you were there, because you were holding the awareness or the space for that. Like it doesn't do that when I do it myself, does it?
maybe it will now.
Oh, right. Okay.
Maybe it's clearer that when I tell a story about what's happening, I experience that story. This is something really bad. So you can also just, if you can, go, I'm not going to go with that. I'm just going to see what's actually happening. And it's perhaps just a habit to get into rather than, you know, all we've done is just to be with what is. We don't need a teacher to do that with. It's something that we, of course, it's helpful at first, but it's something that we can learn on our own as well. To just, however much I can today, I'm going to just be with this emotion or this energy or whatever it is. And there's no imaginary finish line. Just how much can I be with it today?
So even if it's like a strong panic attack, like I feel like I can't breathe anymore, like I'm gonna die right in that second now, even then.
Yeah. Can you just be with that even?
All right.
Because usually what we're doing is, I shouldn't feel this way. I should be able to cope with this better. I shouldn't be having this panic attack, and I certainly shouldn't be thinking about this panic attack, right? But actually, just the fear rising up is so much easier to be with without the stories we're telling. We're either going to experience the fear or the stories about the fear. And the first time I actually experienced the fear itself, I was actually just able to be with it in its intensity. And it showed me something fundamental about myself. Whatever I am something that can be with this. I do have that capacity. When I tell a story that I can't cope with this or it's too much, I experience that story. It becomes overwhelming and, well, you've been there 100,000 times. Yeah.
All right, yeah. I'll give that a go. I'll let you know in a couple of weeks.
I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you for being so brave. Yeah, wonderful. You helped us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Olivera, you're muted. Oh, there we go. Yeah, wonderful.
Oh, um, uh, in my 20s, when I started with the search, I had a teacher, and uh, it was Bhakti Yoga, and the idea was that you should be as dedicated as and as concentrated um, towards the guru and the path and the idea of enlightenment. So I knew exactly what to do with my thoughts. I would, if nothing else, I would just keep my guru's picture in my sight. So I didn't really have problems with thoughts, and I would just direct them towards the guru and the teaching. And then I got married. I had to leave the path because I got married, and then the problems started in the marriage. Then I got divorced, became a single mom, jobless. So I had different things to concentrate on, raising the child, taking care of how to get through with the money and everything. And so now my child has grown, and I don't have, he doesn't live with me, and I'm alone. And as soon as it was possible, I just threw myself to Advaita teachings online, and I realized that I'm full of concepts. I mean, they're all the same. If I told you which teachers I was listening to, you would know that it's all the same actually. But I feel that I'm full of concepts now, and for some time now, I'm so glad that I found you, and uh, with you, I feel so much clarity, and everything that seemed so complicated and not achievable or something. Now with you, it's all gone, and I absolutely gravitate towards you absolutely. And I almost don't listen to anybody else now. So, but the problem now is that um, I'm in a state of complete, it's so contradictory. As much as I learn through the satsangs, um, the more confused I am, and for some time now I've been in this state of total confusion.
Does that have to be a problem? The mind says it's a problem, the confusion, but
it just feels that if my thought wanders away to something that's not important, then I think, oh, I should be concentrating on my progress, and then the thought comes, well, there's no progress for me because I personally do not exist, and then on and on it goes,
so
and it's here for some time.
so whatever thought arises, because thought's having a conversation with itself, right? It's talking to itself. Whenever thought arises, any thought at all, what if you only need to notice them if you only need to notice the thought and then recognize that you're seeing it, that you're aware of that thought? What if it's not your job to manage the mind at all? Let it go where it goes. Let it think about whatever it wants to think about, wherever that is. If it wanders into imagining it's having an argument with someone and really telling them, then I said this and she said this, or if it's thinking about reality, truth, God, whatever it's thinking about, let it do that. And you just notice that you're noticing whenever you can. Wow, wherever the mind goes, I can see it. I can see it. I'm the one watching it.
And it gets, wow, you really make things simple and easy.
Mind makes it complicated, right?
It's a life savior at this point. I mean, I'm so fed up with the struggle.
So give it up. I want you to resign from your job as mind manager, right? Give it up.
Wow,
I quit. I quit my job as
happy.
mind manager. Don't quit your actual job. But just I'm stepping away from this. My only practice is to see that whatever the content of the mind is, thought after thought after thought, I'm watching it. I'm here watching these thoughts, whether they're spiritual thoughts Thoughts about the guru, thoughts about illusion, thoughts about other people, whatever mind is thinking about, I can see it.
Wow.
And the body goes, oh yeah, I like that. Right? You can feel it.
And also, it goes even further. Like I was always trying to managing life and how to do this, how to solve this, how to plan this, how to reach that. And now it's all like fading away. Like the life is going on so,
All by itself.
yes. No stress, no struggle, no managing, no planning, no strategizing. And it's just so, I mean, due to somebody else's standards, my life is maybe too uh, shallow or,
Yeah, what do we care what other people think? Huh?
but the the struggle that was always there, the managing, the strategizing, the thinking deep at night, breaking my head, and either I was too tired or I was impacted by the satsangs and the teaching. Like somehow I didn't even notice when I gave it all up, and the life is just going on smoothly. And
Because there's nobody keeping score. There's nobody going, oh, now I'm letting that be it as it is. There's nobody going, check, that sense of a separate person that's keeping a record of how you're doing and your awakening. It is that person is melting away. And there's just whatever this is, and you're just watching it all, right? Now I'm just giving you the instruction to do that with the mind. Just watch the mind do its thing. Sometimes it will be in a happy mood, the mind, sometimes it will be totally the opposite. You just watch it all the same, and you see, wow, I'm seeing no matter what the content of the mind is, I can see it. Just that.
so helpful.
Wonderful. So, so glad. So, so glad.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Lovely to talk to you. Take care. Wonderful. Last but not least is Pauline.
Hello, Helen.
Hi.
That was great. A new way of listening, of thinking about it, or thinking about attention, seeing
Being,
it.
being about it or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need a new word, don't we?
Yes. Yes. So this sounds like a leading question, but are you paying attention to me right now that I am speaking? How do you function like this? That fascinates me. Do you pay attention at all?
What is this me that you're paying attention to?
Yeah. So
See if you
does
can
attention?
don't skip past that. Let's look. What is this
Okay.
me that you're paying attention to? Because
The words that are coming forth.
okay,
The question.
and who's paying attention? Who is this I?
Is the self giving attention, I
Let's
guess.
look together. Let's really look. Can you find this I that's grappling with attention?
No, no, not at all.
And what do you find?
Well, I find silence actually, which
Okay,
is
great. And let's look at that silence together. Let's experience that silence together. Is there any attention there?
doesn't even seem to be movement, which is a little confusing.
And yet, the body's still talking, my hand's waving
Yeah.
around, my heart's still beating, everything's just going on. Perhaps it's never been this idea, it's never actually been paying attention to things that's kept everything running. Perhaps despite our best resistance, things have kept running.
Right, right. So I see that, I can look at an object, and if I actually look at it, it is seen as the stillness.
Yeah, if you really
And
look,
so that there is no attention there.
yeah, there's no thing there to pay attention
No,
to. Therefore,
right,
attention is also absent, right?
right, right. It just seems so
Weird.
wonderful that this can happen. One can, it's absolutely true that most of the time that I go through my day, it just happens.
It's just
It
passing.
just,
It's just weird
yeah.
because it's so different to we have thought ourselves to be an object to someone that is managing the whole thing, right?
Mm.
And suddenly you're confronted with the fact that actually it's just all happening inside me. And there's no way for me to manage it, actually. I don't even have to give that up. I just see there's no way for me to manage this. What would I manage anyway? If I look closely enough at any object, a thought, a plant, a human body, whatever, as you said, it's just obviously the stillness in disguise. And you just have to kind of live for a little while with this is really weird. But it moves from weird, it gets upgraded to cool, and then awesome, as
I
you
come to the conclusion that whatever I find weird is something I just haven't yet gone into it sufficiently. But curiosity then. So what about when, because I'm very curious about a lot of things. And that isn't attention, that is something different. Curiosity.
Curiosity is also, it's another name for the self. If you look at
Mm.
awareness or consciousness, it is curiosity, right? It's total lookingness, total seeingness, like knowing, I want to know this completely. It's a curiosity is you wouldn't be curious about something if you thought you knew what it is. Curiosity is coming from that place of, I don't actually know what this apparent object is. Otherwise, why would you be curious? Curiosity is our essential nature. It's just another name for stillness. You feel it, right? There's an aliveness there.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it goes with all the other words that one, like love and things like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's just another name. And you end up being a 49-year-old body, but inside there's like a 3-year-old child going, whoa, look at all this, pretending to be an adult when you have to for satsang or something. But
I don't even have to pretend I'm living on my own. I just
well, actually, I'm not doing a very good job being sensible tonight, and I'm loving it, so it's all good. There's this deep awe and wonder, right, that comes. It starts off as curiosity, and maybe it's the same, just really intense, like as if you just drew a whole question mark over the universe,
yeah.
and most especially yourself. Like,
Yeah.
what is that?
That gives me chills. Thank you. I love it. Thank you.
Not so weird now, more beautiful, right?
Oh yes. Oh yes.
It's just different to what we thought was going on. So for a while, mine goes, wait, what? What? Oh, I got it. No, wait, what?
It makes so much sense when you say that because actually attention is from a tendere, so pulling towards. So if you're not pulling towards anything,
There's tension in
you,
attention, isn't it? There's tension
mm,
in attention.
oh yeah,
What is there that you could pull towards?
right, yeah.
So it just kind of relaxes. Something relaxes,
Mm. A
and it's
lot of tension.
a lot more fun, and a lot less tension.
Yes.
attention.
Oh, that's lovely. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Good to talk to you. Wow, what an amazing set of questions and explorations. And I just want to say a huge thank you for all of you for being so authentic and honest, sometimes with things that are not so easy to face. But it's a power when we all meet together like this. Have you noticed there's something that's fundamentally shifting much faster and easier than we can do on our own? And whatever obstacles we think are in the way are dissolving much faster and easier when we come together like this for this common purpose. So I just want to express my gratitude. Obviously, I'm having a good time, but I hope you did too. And it's totally okay if you're not at that stage where it just doesn't seem like fun. It will do eventually. And I do remember how awful it was and how real it seemed, the illusion. So in those times, it just helps to remember that the conclusion to this, we've seen the last page of the book, and it says, we all lived happily ever after. So it's a done deal. And you can hopefully relax in that a bit. The infinite self is waking up to itself and nothing can stop it, despite what the mind says. And that's always good to remember. Thank you. Namaste.